Hello, students. We're looking at post-colonial theory and poetry. And specifically, we looked at Colonial Girls' School earlier. But this time we want to look at a poem by Mahaday Das, They Came in Ships. And so on the left hand here, I have the poem. And on the right, I've placed reminders that will help you, points. And so the poem, They Came in Ships, focuses on the historical transplanting or transplantation, whichever term you're comfortable with, of indentured servants. And you've got them described as coming in ships. Note carefully that the subjects, the persona, at the very beginning, is collective, plural, they, but the use of the pronoun they suggests that they are obscure subjects. They came. And as the poem progresses, you get the historical coming from India, East India, and you have the names for the places, the names of the ships. But look at the metaphoric use of the word chains, transporting her in chains. So there is a shift from the they to her. And so her representing the collective female. That's because the poem is written from the perspective of the female. It doesn't mean that it's restricted to females only. No, it speaks of the situation of both males and females who were brought to the Caribbean. Incidentally, this poem recounts the coming of the East Indians to the Caribbean as indentured servants. So we've got images of movement, mass human migration, but of course, they're shipped. And humans are metaphorically treated as cargo of animals. And they are treated as less than human when referred to as a cargo of animals. On the other hand, there are images of the British colonizer as that force that results in the transplantation. And you've got the images, human victims of Her Majesty's victory. The poem continues the description of movement of human beings, and metaphorically they are cattle, and it's a simile that's being repeated, like cattle. You're going to find this repetition very often, once, twice, three times, and you're going to find it later in the poem. And so it's of significance for you to unpack what it is. And so, like cattle emphasizes the theme of dehumanization, renders humans the equivalent to cattle. But there is some amount of irony as to reasons. So cattle may be not capable of thinking, but the irony here is that you've got cattle juxtaposed with humans who could think. Although they've got eyes like cattle, they're thinking, having a capacity to have dreams and aspirations, and that's quite unlike cattle. And so, yes, you have an imagery of resistance here, resisting the dehumanization. The poem subtly presents reasoning surrounding the circumstances of why the Indians came, why they left. So, fleeing famine, fleeing death, there was a dream of milk and honey. And maybe that dream of milk and honey is very potent even today. And that's what causes people to move. I'm going to hurry on because time is going to be limited. The black waters are also metaphoric. The crossing from one continent to another. And here we have references to the Brahmin and the Chamara alike. They came. Oh my. Should be they came here. And this reference points to the blurring of class distinctions. And quickly it moves to a kind of image contrasting the hope is that of a platter. Platter and plantocracy, you probably have something going on there with a bit of punning. But what is the suggestion there? It is that disease and death are served as metaphoric food on the platter. And now you've got the persona assuming the position of I, and I saw. So it's an attestation, a speaking on behalf of, and it's a witness. The persona morphs to be a witness of what happened, and you get the images of dispossession, homelessness, tragedy, death, loss. And incidentally, the poem becomes a dirge. And here I have explained for you what dirge means. For you to unpack the rest of it, the I narrator again assumes the position of the I, speaking on behalf of everyone else. I do not forget the past that has molded the present. Consider the representation of the female voice and the tones in the voice of the persona. And this is the address of the theme of history and the theme of time. Time as past, present. And of course, it's the historical. And there is an appeal for memory to retain and remember instead of forgetting. Consider the imagery relating to the new environment, the concept of living, the concept of home, and what we get is the nigger yards. The nigger yards are really in close proximity to the boneyard. Boneyard was the place where the coolies were placed to live, but it's beyond the capacity to imagine how humans were treated as animals, even with the living conditions. The working conditions were no better. And so you should carefully unpack representation of female. Examine how rhetorical question works and functions. Was your blood spilled so that I might reject my history? And so it's a reaffirmation of history, the tone, and it's an entreaty, encouraging others. You need not forget, you need to remember. And so, yes, the large theme of forgetting versus remembering. And so there is the I narrator doing a recounting of resistance. And what do we get? Resistance as a large theme addressed in post-colonial theory. They're resisting the dehumanization by holding on to dreams and visions. Consider the oral images. What is meant by the whimpering coolies? And here we come to the end of the poem, and I have it in dark blue. And the help that you get is maybe you could answer, what does free verse deliver well? So the poem, the form of the poem is one of free verse. And the memory is bombarded with oral images, images of resistance. Resisting what? Resisting the erasure of memory. And there is repetition, not subtle, but determined, the cry of the coolies. So that repetition, what does it serve to enhance? And it's again an oral image. And poem ends with the largest you of forgetting They forgot the purpose of their coming. The commissioners left. There was a $50 bounty that remained, and there were still the dreams of a cow and endless calves. And so this speaks of generations to come, and there's an endless reality. And the poem ends that people are still in chains, even though it might not be literal chains, these are metaphoric chains. And so, what is communicated with the symbolism? Dreams, cow, calves. And so I encourage you to go through the poem independently and see how you could take evidence of post colonial theory applying to your interpretation. Thank you.